Up until now, we've used built-in functions to do some calculations. So some of the examples of the built-in functions that we used are the min, max, and other functions in MATLAB. So now what we're going to do is we're going to make our own function file that we can use to do calculations. So before we learn how to make our own function file, let's recall how a function file is used. So when you use a function in MATLAB, you have a general format. So you have variable name on the left hand side, and that is assigned the function name. So a function is generally you can near writing a function, it's generally something like function name, and inside so this right here is what a function looks like, and inside that you will write your parameters. So for this function right here, for the mean function, the parameters are matrix name, comma, 1 or 2. So parameters are what you send to MATLAB, and this is what MATLAB gives back to you after doing some calculations using this function file. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a function file called skydive, because you're about to jump out of a plane and you want to do some calculations or something like that. I don't know. But we're going to make a function file called skydive, and what we're going to do is we're going to send it these 5 parameters, and the function file will do some calculations and it will return us these 3 variables. Okay? So the variables we're going to send it are t, t naught, h naught, b naught, and vc. So t in this case is a vector of time that has different time intervals. T naught is our initial time, which is a scalar. H naught is our initial height, from the height you're jumping out of the plane, which is also a scalar. Then b naught is the initial downward velocity. I believe that's going to be a scalar. That should not be a vector because there's only one value. BC is going to be a vector. Should it be a vector? Which is terminal velocity is just 1. So that should also be a scalar. Sorry about that. Then you have what it will return you is h, b, and a, where h is the vector of heights, different heights at different t intervals, and b is the velocity at those time values, and a is the acceleration at those time values. So that is what it will return us. So let's begin by making our function file. So the first thing you do to make a function file is you say new function. So that's pretty simple. So now I'm going to clear this up real quick. Alright, so the first thing you do when you after you make a function file is you look at what your function is called. Our function is called skydive, but I already have a file called skydive, so I'll call it skydive2. So we're going to name our function skydive2. So you see right here untitled 6, or it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever. So untitled, you say skydive2. So that's the function name. So here you see that comes right after the equal sign, right after the equal sign, right after the equal sign. Woohoo! So on the left hand side is what MATLAB is going to send back to you. So here we're saying it's going to be H, B, and A. So on the left hand side of the of the equal sign, we'll write h comma b comma a, right? So this is what MATLAB is going to send back to us. And input arguments are your parameters, is what you're sending MATLAB. So here what you will write is t, t naught, h naught, v naught, and vc. So t, t naught, h naught, v naught, vc, I think. Let's see, t naught, h naught, v naught, vc. Okay, yeah. So that is what you write on the right hand side. So like I said earlier, the point is you're sending MATLAB these 5 variables. You're going to write lines of codes right here, right? You're going to write code to find a way to use these 5 variables to calculate these 3 values, or vectors for that matter. Okay? So we know that what we're going to send back is h, v, and a. So we know for a fact that there are going to be 3 equations in here. One for h, one for v, and one for a. So now we know from, this is just physics, we know these equations from physics, so I'm just going to, and since they're pretty long to type, I'm just going to copy and paste them. But you can pause the video right here if you want to actually write the equations down and see for yourself. You can pause the video right here and write them down. So I'm just going to copy and paste them. So now the first thing we see is, okay, so once you write your equations down, you see that you go through each and every one of them to see if you're using all 5 of these. You don't always have to use all 5 of them, but if you have additional variables, then you might have to declare them here and then write lines of codes for them. So let's go through h first. So h naught, we're given that. Okay, so we don't need to worry about that. hc, we're not given that right here. You see, we're not given hc. So what we're going to do is we're going to write, we're going to define hc inside of this function file. So we're going to say hc is equal to, let's see, what is it equal to? bc times tc. Okay, so it's equal to bc times tc. But wait a second, we don't have a tc here, so we're going to have to define tc before that. So tc is equal to bc divided by g. bc divided by g. Now once again, we don't have a g in here. We don't have a g, so we're going to have to define what g is, which is gravity. We're going to say g is equal to 9.8. So this is just basically defining things. You can write, the goal here is to just look at the bigger picture. The goal is to use all these 5, you don't always have to use all 5 of them, but use these parameters to generate these 3 values or vectors. So we're basically, the end goal here is to find a way to calculate h, v, and a. So basically that's why you had to write these extra 3 lines of code in here to calculate h, v, and a. So now we have hc, good. We have t, we're given that. T naught, we're given. Tc, we calculated. V naught, we're given. Bc, we calculated. This already, we looked at it. Alright, so everything else we either calculated or were given. So this is all you had to do to write your function file. Your function file is complete. Now you can save it. Now you have to, here's the thing, if you call this skydive2, you have to save it as skydive2. I don't know why that is, but that's what I was told when I learned it. So you had to just call it skydive2 if you keep the name consistent. So I'll call it skydive2 and I'll save it. So there you go, that's how you make a function file. So now we're going to go back here and we're going to use that function file. So what we're told is you have a t which goes from 0 to 50, so you have time interval from 0 seconds to 50 seconds, and then your initial time is 0 seconds, your initial height is 2500 meters, let's just call it that, and your initial downward velocity, I think it's downward velocity, right? Yeah, is 0. So initially you're not doing anything. Then you can calculate your VC, which is defined by these constants. And I've already calculated that, so you don't have to worry about that, just to simplify things a bit. Because the point of this video is to learn how to use the skydive or make a function and use it. So VC is equal to 41.8543. Okay? So here we see that on the left hand side, I did not change these variables, but if you wanted to, I'll just call it height. Actually define it velocity and acceleration. Okay, so velocity. There we go. Sorry about that. So you have these three variables is what is going to return. So it's about the positioning of the variables. So if the variable in this position is going to get what's in this position, so it's going to get this h. Everything that's assigned to h is going to be assigned to height. Velocity is going to get assigned everything that's assigned to v here. And similarly, acceleration is going to get assigned whatever this a is assigned right here after doing the calculation here, down here inside the function file, right? And then what we're sending the skydive to file are these 5 parameters. We're sending it t, t naught, h naught, v naught, and vc. Once again, it doesn't matter what you call your variables. It's just about the position of where you put it. So I could call this tomatoes, but I would have to put that right here because that's my vector of time. So it's just the positioning you have to be careful about. So that's why it's easier just to keep these exact parameters as they're given. So once we run this line of code, what it's going to do, MATLAB is going to call, first thing it does is calls the skydive file, right? It goes there. It says, alright, so the user gave me all 5 of these parameters, so I'm going to toss them to you. So it gives it these 5 parameters. MATLAB gives the skydive2 function, these parameters, and then what the skydive2 function does is it says, alright, I'm going to take these 5 variables, do some calculations in here. This is different for every function file, obviously. So it does calculations here, and it says, alright, I have the values, and I'm going to throw them back at the user right here. So it assigns it to this, and then it goes back out here to your function, to your actual MATLAB file, and it says, alright, whatever I had in this position, whatever I had for h, I'll assign it to the variable in this position, so I'll assign it to height. Whatever I calculated for v, I'll assign it to the second variable, velocity, and whatever I calculated for a, I'll assign that to whatever's in the third position, which is acceleration. So it does that, and then if you hit run, let's see if it, alright, so here you go. Here are your 3 variables. Here are your height. It calculated height for you. It calculated velocity for you. It also calculated acceleration for you at those 51 time intervals. So 0 to 50. That's 51. So you should have 51 I guess, spaces in your vectors, so that your vector should be of length 1 by 51. So that's good. So that's basically how you would use a function file or write a function file. Just what I like to do is once I'm told what to do, I will just look at this and then I'll just make a function file that has the same title as this basically. And then from there, what I would do is I would write out these three equations, or yeah, so I'll use these parameters and write out these three equations, and then I'll go back here and I'll just run it. I think that's the easiest way of doing this. If you have any confusions, I think it's better to like clear. It's better to understand this because you use function files over and over in MATLAB. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you for watching.